Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, dear panelists. Good to see you again. Everybody feeling joyful and very hot, I guess. At least I am. We have a bit of a fan here. That's good. All right. I wanted to start quickly by having each of you introduce yourselves. What you do, who you are, and also with a small question, what does cultural relevance actually mean in your day-to-day work? Start off with that. We start with you, Tom.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Evans. I run the kitchen, which is the internal creative agency at Kraft Heinz. We were designed to make brands culturally relevant with a modern consumer. To answer your question, at Kraft Heinz, we have a lot of big heritage brands. They have a long, sort of rich history. So for us, it's about kind of, dusting these brands off, making sure that they're fresh, making sure that they're really meaningful in people's everyday lives. So for us, that's how cultural relevance is really, really important to what we do.
Thank you. Danielle?
I'm Danielle Hawley, and I'm the head of brand and creative at Uber. I think Uber is absolutely in culture, whether we do something or don't do something. There's very few TV shows that you can watch where you don't see somebody hopping in an Uber. It's kind of a word, it's a verb, everybody uses it. But that's different than being able to influence culture, and that's different than being able to be loved for what you do. So that's sort of how we focus. When I first started at Uber, it was the age of delete Uber. We were very much in the red as it relates to brand and reputation. So we had to stick to humor and self-deprecation to make sure we were sort of, taking the piss out of ourselves, honestly, to come back down to earth and say, like, we get it, we're working harder at it. And then the talent that we picked had to also be self-deprecating. They had to be willing to do that.
Got it. Thank you. Julie.
Hi, everyone. Julie Foster. I'm managing director at EA, handling marketing and commercial, as well as our new advertising platform. For us, really cultural relevance is meeting our fans where they are, timely in the moment, and being really emotionally resonant with our brands. So we like to have a lot of fun and meet our fans where they are.
Hey everybody, I'm Devin Nagy. I'm the global head of digital for the tequila category at Diageo. So for those that don't know Diageo, we've got some fantastic brands, specifically in tequila, Don Julio and Casamigos. In the spirits business, if your brand is not in culture, you are toast, full stop. But I think just thinking about the topic of the panel today, there's a real contrast for why I'm here. We are sponsors of the World Cup. So Don Julio and Casamigos are sponsors of the World Cup. And the World Cup is obviously one of the biggest events in the world. There's probably 3 or 4 that can get you that many eyeballs. So it is scale, attention. But the reason why we were here is we were nominated for an award for a collaboration we did with fashion music DJ icon Peggy Gou, who worked with us to design a limited edition of Don Julio 1942. And that was very much designed to be a sort of drop in culture. And we're really pleased with that and happy to talk more about that.
Very cool case, and we'll discuss a bit more about that case in a bit. Off the record, who's going to be the world champion football, you think? Or soccer? Who's going to be this world champion of the... Because you're the sponsor, you should know, right?
The World Cup, I mean, it's hard to ignore France right now, and I'm playing to the home crowd. But I think, first of all, FIFA is an amazing partner. I think that, our brands activate in Canada, the US, and Mexico, and we've got amazing experiences in and around the stadiums. So it's a major moment, obviously a major investment for our brands. Cannot discount that. It's a big bet for us. And we're hoping it pays off.
Thanks, Devin. Tom, back to you. You do a lot of collaborations, and being Dutch, The last one I've seen I liked a lot. We already discussed it. The six pack with 5 bottles of Heineken and 1 bottle of Heinz ketchup. I like that one, but we're discussing another one here. So you work for the kitchen, and the kitchen collaborated with music producer Mustard to bring Heinz mustard into culture, turning it into social memes and getting a spot at the Grammys and at the Super Bowl. What does that speed and cultural fluency actually require for you? And what had to change, if anything, inside Kraft Heinz to make a collaboration like this possible?
Yeah, for those who don't know the mustard campaign, I can try and give a sort of very quick overview. So Kendrick Lamar dropped his music track TV Off. In that track, he had this line where he shouts, I'm not going to do this justice, but he shouts, "Mustard!" for a very, very long time. This was a shout out to his producer, DJ Mustard, formerly DJ Mustard. This moment goes huge. It's a big sort of meme. It becomes this online moment that we know we have to react to. So very, very quickly, we sign him as our chief mustard officer. We co-create an LTO product in record time. We announced this partnership at the Grammys, where Kendrick Lamar wins like 5 Grammys. We created a TV spot in 2 weeks because we wanted it to be fresh and to get it out there. It then is on Saturday Night Live, billions of impressions, 62% uplift in sales. It was a really big moment that we owned. But I think, to your point, what's really interesting is when we talk about that campaign, people always ask, how on earth can you move that quickly in the heat of the moment in a large organization like Kraft Heinz? And the truth is that it takes, months, actually years of preparation behind the scenes to make sure that we're organizationally sort of ready to meet a moment like that. So we do a ton of stuff. We have like a full dedicated teams doing social listening, constantly tracking culture. We have, all of our brand foundations have to be in place. We have evergreen briefs so that all of our teams know exactly which cultural moments to sort of, we can own and they make sense for us to respond to. We have, pre-approved legal guardrails and, traffic light system, always on budgets, all this kind of boring stuff behind the scenes. We have escalation protocols, so we know exactly who and when the people we can get together across the organization in hours. So, I could go on and on. But ultimately, what seems like a kind of a lucky moment and something like a sort of in-the-moment reaction is actually genuinely a sort of years in the moment to make sure that we can react to moments like that,
Beautiful case, really cool. Thank you. So Devin, now we're talking about partnerships, and you already touched upon this quickly. Last year you partnered with Don Julio, I need to pronounce this right being European. Don Julio, right? Don Julio 1942 with Peggy Gou. So you made that into Don Julio 1940 Gou. Limited edition bottle rooted in nightlife, music and style culture. Now you're also activating Casamigos and Don Julio as official tequila supporters, of course. Well, we already kind of discussed this for the FIFA World Cup with airport activations across 34 countries. One is creator-led and culture first. The other is a global sports sponsorship at scale. And how do you then decide which approach fits best for that brand at that moment?
Yeah, I think it comes down to thinking about how and where your brand is at that moment in culture and whether or not you need to borrow relevance. But I think the more interesting thing to talk about is the partnership with Peggy, because that was a partnership that was truly authentic. She operated in a lot of the same spaces and places that 1942 Don Julio operates, bars, clubs, nightlife, music. And so we didn't treat her as like a billboard, right? She sort of authentically partnered with us. The partnership went above and beyond what we thought it was going to be. In terms of overall volume of sales, it was a relatively small allocation, right? It's a limited edition. So it's meant to drive buzz and drive heat around the brand so you get that halo that you're looking for. And the partnership, it was a global partnership. That's one thing that I should note is there was a strategic effort to grow tequila globally outside of the US and Mexico, where it is highest in awareness and highest in penetration. So it helped us break into markets in APAC, Europe, other important spaces in LATAM. So it created a truly sort of global moment for the brand, and we designed it as social first, but it showed up, in all those spaces and places where she was popular: Seoul, Korea, Hong Kong, Milan, New York, and people came out for the drops. It was really, really gratifying to see when you work on this stuff. So yeah, we were happy with it.
Cool. Thank you. So, Danielle, the Super Bowl Beckham ad. Let's talk about that. It took a viral cultural moment from their Netflix documentary, turned it into a campaign about Uber Eats. That's a big leap from a personal moment to a brand platform. So how do you bridge cultural moments to brand building without it feeling forced, which I guess is hard?
Yeah, that was a surprising one, I think. The teaser that was featured before the Super Bowl that year actually outperformed all the other ads that were actually on the bowl. So we were very surprised at the global reach that it had. We knew that Netflix, it was the #1 watch show on Netflix that year. So we knew that it was already in culture and that we had a little bit of what we call a if you know, you know, in that, not just that show, but in that moment. And as I mentioned before, the brand is very self-deprecating. When we started, selling light bulbs on Uber Eats, which is just like about the dumbest name you could have when you're trying to convince people that you sell light bulbs, we made sure that we made fun of that. And we instantly changed the logo to Don't Eats. And we did a whole campaign around Uber Don't Eats. So with the Beckhams, it was really about what can they do that's going to tap into that same self-deprecation. And it's incredibly endearing when you see celebrities on commercials who are doing something that you would be very surprised that they would do. It's not an endorsement. They're not, spokespeople. They're really in the ad and they're living and breathing the message that you want to create in a way that's very compelling. So she forgot the Spice Girls. She forgot the name of the Spice Girls. They had a whole banter about, was it the Paprika Ladies, and really funny stuff. But that moment of be honest really led into the concept of the campaign, which is that you have to forget something to remember something. So yeah, beautiful moment, I think, for the brand. Definitely global. When you're on, when you're in Uzbekistan and Sydney and the US in one day, I think you know that you've tapped into something.
Thank you. Julie, so you manage franchises with decades of equity, such as Madden, FC, and The Sims. You've talked about gaming being about community and connection now, especially for younger players, right? So then how do you balance protecting what makes these franchises iconic with staying present in how people actually play and connect?
Yeah, it's a great question because our brands have been around for decades and people love them. So we have core audiences that know what authentic looks like, and they want their franchise, their game, and us to really show up and deliver that. And then the world continues to evolve. And so there's new expectations, there's new channels, there's new ways of engaging. We think about it in, around, and beyond our games. Like there's the hands-on stick in our games. But then what about all the things that happen around games? People watch other people play games. People create content about games, for games, in games, and so on. And so I think for us, we really try to hold sort of our version of the canon of the franchise and the brand close to heart, but be very open to how we evolve and deliver to, like I said, to meet our players and our fans where they are. So it's a mentality, I think, about maybe less about protecting the brand and holding it close, and more about respecting and knowing where we came from, but also looking at consumers and fans and players out there and say, what are they into? Can we enable them to be part of our community and empower them to create and so on? So it's a balance.
Hard balance, I guess, but very important one. Thank you. So question for all of you, or who wants to answer. So all 4 of your brands or companies deliver something functional, right? So food, entertainment, transportation, drinks. Where's the line between product truth and brand story? When does emotional branding enhance the experience versus distract from it? Anyone with a bright idea on this? Can I go first, Tom?
Yeah, sure, I can tackle that if you want. I think for me, what I hate is when emotional branding is kind of this purpose bolted on, right? Everything has to be rooted in your product, it has to be rooted in your brand, and you have to sort of remember what it is that you actually sell. So like us at Kraft Heinz, we sell pantry staples, like let's not be talking about saving animals in Antarctica, you know? So for us, internally, we actually use a model, like a 3 truths model, we call it. So we have product truth, cultural truth, and brand truth. We believe that great creative exists at the intersection of those 3, but those 3 have to live in harmony. So if you lean in too much into the product truth, you end up with a sort of, dare I say, overly boring sort of feature ad. If you lean into culture too much, you get something which is very engaging and might resonate, but it might not attribute to your brand. People don't know who's doing it. And if you lean in too much to the brand, you start to get that sort of Antarctica and this emotional branding that's not sort of rooted in your product. So I kind of breathe that, emotional branding is very much earned, it's not manufactured. And that at Kraft Heinz is sort of the system that we use to kind of keep ourselves honest, to be honest, and not get carried away.
Got it. Cool. Any other views on this?
I would just say we have, generally speaking, fairly young audiences, very diverse, but Gen Z, and just a reminder, Gen Z is now all the way up to 29, so they're not babies anymore. But Gen Z very much behaviorally demand cultural relevance. They're emotionally intelligent. They're very participatory, so they want to be involved, and they're community-centered. So if you take those pieces, we have to invest in that emotional part of the brand building. Depending on the audiences we're speaking to, we go deeper on functional elements because, again, those core niche, more micro tribes, they want to know every detail of everything that's happening. But for us, it's definitely a balance down to how we build our creative, how we invest between those things. And we know if we're not investing in both, that will fail. So we really focus on the balance, which not easy, but definitely a priority.
As a bit of a follow-up to that, because I guess it's also connected. EA Advertising just launched. EA Advertising just launched, right? And so that's a big one, I guess. Turning your games into advertising platforms with targeting and measurement. It's very data-driven. But you also said branding is the experience people have when they touch what you're putting in front of them. So how do you balance building a data product for advertisers without compromising what makes the gaming experience work?
Yeah, that's a good question too, if you think about the different audiences that we're serving in that. So we officially launched EA Advertising last week and announced that. And we also have these incredible brand partnership opportunities and presenting sponsor opportunities on our EA Sports touch points as well. And for us, we always put the community and the player experience first. And so when we designed all of the sort of intrinsic and technical solutions that had to be true inside our games for advertising, we did it with the player experience in mind. So think about it this way. It is authentic in sports to see the All Hands logo behind the college football net, right? That's not disruptive to the experience. Huge, huge value add for the brands that are part of our advertising network as well. And so it's the balance between the two. To your point about the brand, how do we protect the brand? Well, we've designed our entire advertising platform to really put the player and the brand first. And so, yes, it's data driven, like you said in your question, because we have to be able to report back to all of our brands on impressions. And so we've done a lot of technical work on that, a lot of measurement work on that. And so we're very much more mature in that. But think of that as like back of the house. The front of the house experience is really cool. And there's a lot of brands that want to connect with this audience. Half the world's population are gamers. So it's like a massive opportunity.
I guess if you play it right, it can feel very authentic as well, right, within the game.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
Right. So this is a place that we think we've earned the right to play in, and it's part of justifying the investment. The other piece with the Peggy Goo campaign, obviously it's a riskier bet, but the upside is there. And there's data and things that you can look at to understand how you partner with the right person. And again, with her, she was already showing up in those spaces and places that we show up: music, nightlife, DJs. Don Julio has a long history of partnering with DJs. So that, to us, was a match, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't a bet that we made. It happened to work out really well. And you have to have people in the organization that are, willing to take those risks and give the team the psychological safety to go out and do that and execute.
Thank you. Danielle, Uber Eats ran its 5th consecutive Super Bowl ad. You've launched an in-house creative studio, and you're consistently winning at Cannes. Super cool. At what point does building trust stop being the story and cultural leadership becomes the expectation? How does that shift change your creative strategy?
It's interesting because we really found a voice with Uber Eats, and we found a voice that worked globally, which was all about the self-deprecation of things, but it was through humor, which I don't think anybody would expect to come from Uber. But when I first started there was a laptop in the creative department that was like, "Don't shut the laptop, you'll shut down Uber Eats." I mean, it was that grassroots. And then, of course, COVID happened and it became 50% of the business. And like a lot of tech companies, the business grew very fast. It grew much faster than the brand. And those two lines of business, rides and eats, completely separated from each other. They had different looks and feels, they had different tones, and they certainly didn't come together under an umbrella like you would want. So we set out to think about what Uber, capital U, really meant. And when you dive into those experiences, which is, again, the product is the app, people recognize the way that the app works, the user experience, and they get the same push notification when they order or when they order a car that says, "On our way." And as soon as I read that as a writer, I went, that's it. That's our consumer-facing line. But what does it mean underneath? What's the DNA of the brand behind that? It felt very intuitive to me. But the research really showed that people, Uber is incredibly reliable, but reliability is a functional benefit. So how do you turn that into something emotional? And as it turns out, people feel like reliability is no longer a value, that they themselves aren't reliable, that they're not showing up for the people that they want to show up for. And that we sort of hatched this notion that we don't actually pick you up and take you to the airport. We take you to your vacation. It's a means to an end. And that's emotional. So that idea of showing up, we show up so you can show up, really brought the two brands together and I think created a connection that was about trust building and emotionality versus just like, you like our product, you use our product, tap a button, get a ride.
Love that. Thank you. Tom, the kitchen's approach, whether it's Ore-Ida, if I pronounce that correctly.
Ore-Ida.
Ore-Ida. We practiced this before we went in. Whether it's Ore-Ida reacting to a basketball player announcing his great-grandfather invented your product, or Capri Sun responding to a viral misinformation that the brand's beloved pouch was getting discontinued, requires creative risk-taking. How do you balance that instinct-driven work with the accountability that comes with operating inside a public company?
Yeah, I think creative risk-taking, especially in a large organization like Kraft Heinz, obviously takes trust. And I think trust is really based on, relationships, and it's based on brand intimacy. So the kitchen as an internal agency, gives us both of those things. We're in the same meetings, the same town halls, we're having those kind of hallway conversations where we're building out those brand relationships, but we're also just constantly absorbing the brand as well. So as we get deeper with our brand knowledge, you sharpen the instincts, and that allows you to think about what risks you can take or should take. That combined with, we use this kind of go, then grow approach. So we actually start with a kind of minimal viable creative product. We put that out very, very quickly. If that gets traction, we throw gasoline on the fire, we scale very quickly. But if it doesn't get traction, you haven't really lost much. There wasn't much risk to start with. But this is also a way where you can get wins very, very quickly. So, we can put something out, we get wins, it starts to build excitement. All of the other brands at Kraft Heinz are like, look at that cool thing that other brand's doing. It starts to get infectious. You start to build this culture of creativity across a large organization like Kraft Heinz. But then, of course, your instinct-driven work is only as good as the instincts that sort of sit underneath it. And yeah, in a large organization, those instincts have to be proven out with results. Creative freedom is something you earn with a track record of results that is driving the business and growing the business. If you do that, you get the latitude to actually take more risks, bigger risks. So it's kind of set the foundations, relationships, brand knowledge, a sort of go, then grow iterative approach. Prove that out through results, and it becomes this kind of virtuous circle that, sounds very easy when I'm sat here talking about it, but it's actually taken years and years to develop that. But that's often actually how we get to some of our best work is sort of built on that foundation.
Thank you. So quick question for all. So trust is expensive to build and cheap to lose, as we all know. What's one decision each of you have made in the last year that prioritized long-term trust over short-term attention? Let's start with you, Devin.
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, I feel like the sponsorship of the World Cup is a pretty safe bet with a huge investment attached to it, right? I mean, like there was a lot of internal debate as to whether or not, you shift A&P from this spot to like invest that. And so you're inevitably inside of the brand world of your company, probably pissing people off because you're taking their budget away. But at the end of the day, I feel like that was a no-brainer for us. And that was something that we did to maintain the trust of the consumers that we have in that occasion.
Julie?
Yeah, I'll flip it just a tiny bit and say something that we focused on long-term and not focus on short-term revenue as an example, which is the way that we've set up the EA advertising work. I had mentioned already, from soup to nuts, the way we've set it up, it just enhances the experience for the player. And that is delighting players and it is delighting brands, and long-term, that then pays off. A really good example is Coach put their purses in The Sims, which is our lifestyle simulation game. And man, the community went absolutely wild for that because they were just so delighted. And so that's just a really good example of we were very thoughtful about the approach on that. Brand super happy. They ended up getting tons of earned media coverage because it ended up just being the talk of the town. And so I think these are long-term plays that end up everybody wins.
Thank you. Danielle?
When I first came to Uber, the reason that I jumped ship in the middle of COVID from my very comfortable advertising job was because the opportunity was to be a part of something that had massive scale and a completely unwritten brand. Normally, you can go to a startup and write the brand, but there's no scale. Or you can go to a large corporation that has lots of scale, but the brand is kind of written for you. You're sort of joining something rather than creating something from scratch. So I think that speaking of long-term investments, we use our lines of business and the advertising that we buy for Uber Eats and Uber Rides to drive growth. We are in the growth business. We are very business minded. We are very business focused. And we've really found the sweet spot between entertainment and education, or entertainment and commercialism, which is, I think, vastly missing from still a lot of this festival and a lot of the industry. But but making that commitment to really thinking about what is the DNA of the brand really is a long-term play. It is about, when we do autonomous vehicles, is our DNA going to be the same? If we have robot delivery people, is it going to be the same? And I think that's about finding a universal truth and really doubling down on it. And now I think what's fascinating is you can look at all 4 regions, all of the work that's happening, whether it's a line of business or it's Uber, what we call parent brand. It has the DNA. It's right there. And that's something I think we're super proud of.
Tom, the neighbor.
I'm going to sort of build on what Danielle's saying a little bit. I think one of the things we've done this year would be that we've actually had to sort of talk to our creative teams and put some really exciting creative work we had in the hopper on pause, because we just feel like the brand foundations weren't there. So on a couple of our brands, even though we have this really exciting work, it's a really exciting culture activation, it's going to get attention. You have to sort of ask yourself, well, what's the point? Why are you getting attention for attention's sake? If it's not laddering up to a business job to be done, why are we doing it? And I think on some of our brands, we got to a stage where it's like, let's just put the pause on these cultural activations to get the short-term attention. Let's go back a step. Let's make sure that we've got the foundation, so we're going to sort of win in the long term, which creatives hate to hear it, but it's the right thing to do.
Cool. I'm looking at the clock. We have 1 minute and 20 seconds. So I want to try how far we can get with the rapid fire questions, because I like those. So if there's one brand outside your industry is doing, let's put it differently, which brand outside your industry is doing something you would love to steal? Quick one. Any ideas?
Well, I'm going to give I'm Danielle getting all my focus. I'm going to give a shout out to Danielle, because what I love that Uber are doing is, and this is a bit of a theme of today, right? Like, I think how you take something which is innately just like a product feature, but how you're able to turn that into really emotional branding, how you make it something which is really entertaining. So if I stole anything, it's really the discipline to tell emotive storytelling that is always rooted in your product, but feels consistently fresh and exciting. So I'm going to say Uber.
I definitely didn't pay him, I promise. But thank you very much. I mean, that's very intentional, so it's nice that it's recognized. Come back to me. Julie, go ahead.
We will.
Okay. I'm going to go with Comfort. Some of you may or may not know them. Very new apparel company, but I was with the founder yesterday, and what I love, if you have a teenager, they probably definitely know about the hoodies. What I love about, he's relentlessly focused on meeting people where they are, whatever it takes. And he built that business into $1 billion situation based on just saying creators, social, and just didn't do any of the traditional things that people would say you have to do. So I like that mentality. And as brands that have been around for a long time, we try and look for those inspirations. So.
Devin.
I'm going to remember a conversation that I had with one of our creative partners who's actually in the audience with us here from Gale today about a brand that we admire, and that brand is Rolex. For obvious reasons, I think they do amazing work where they tie the trademark back to all the partners that they work with to success, and championships. And if you look at all of their brand partners, they're all hugely successful, and it comes through the line. So I'm a huge admirer of that brand. I think they do great work.
Right. Thank you.
Am I saved by the bell?
Yes.
The reason that I was hesitating is because there's so many that come to mind, honestly. I think it's really important that we celebrate each other and that we recognize greatness in other brands. But I have to say that I feel like Adidas is about to make a comeback, and that World Cup spot was just mind-blowing. Yeah. I think if they could ride that trajectory, especially with Nike having had a little bit of a bump there, they're right back into cultural relevance.
Nice one. With that, I want to thank all 4 of you for being here, sharing your insights, and a very interesting and nice conversation. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Round of applause.